Hello, ladies and gentlemen. 7A coming back to you. This is Mr. Hescox. We've been talking about cells and their jobs and their different organelles. The last class, we talked about different types of cells, and one of those types of cells was a red blood cell. And if you were answering this question, you would say that a red blood cell's job is to carry oxygen to your other cells. Today, we're going to talk about active and passive transport. They are opposites. Specifically, diffusion is one of the big ones, osmosis, and then active transport. 50 and 51, and then reading this. You have the review questions on page 51. How do materials move into and out of a cell? A molecule is the smallest particle of a substance. That is still that substance. Molecules are made of atoms and they are connecting. Molecules want to move from areas that are less crowded to areas that are more crowded. That takes us to diffusion. Diffusion is the movement of particles from areas of high concentration to areas of low concentration in which they balance out. Make sure that you guys at home are watching these video clips that I've inserted in here because this one is a really good example of diffusion. So basically, crowded areas lead to less areas. I personally love to get away from people. I like to go out in the woods all by myself where there's nobody around. In the city, you're really condensed and particles want to spread out and move away from the city. Diffusion allows oxygen and waste to pass through the cell membrane. The particles are going to go through the tiny pores in the membrane. As waste build up inside, they move from high areas to lower areas. Oxygen is found in the blood because it diffuses from the high oxygen in your lungs into the low oxygen of the blood when it returns back to your lungs. There's a couple ways of picturing diffusion or passive transport. I like to picture it as a hill. And I have a little man at the hill. To go from a high part on the hill to a low part on the hill, this is diffusion. At the same time, the opposite of diffusion is active transport. The opposite of diffusion is active transport. So if I put a little man at the bottom, he has to use energy to go up the hill. There is a special type of diffusion called osmosis. And anytime you see this word in this chapter where it talks about diffusion of water, you see of water, you got to go osmosis when you get your vocabulary quiz or whatever. So diffusion of water is basically a high concentration of water moving to where there is a low concentration of water. And it is very important for getting amount of water into cells to keep them alive. If you place a cell in the salt water, like say your dentist tells you to gargle with salt water, it will cause the cells that are infecting your back of your throat to actually die because the salt water will draw it out, and I will show you that on the next slide. So let's say Let's draw like a plant cell here. And inside my plant cell, there's water. Those dots represent the water. But I put the plant cell in pure water. When I put that in pure water, you're going to have lots of dots on the inside. So there's more water on the outside of the cell than on the inside. So water will move from the outside to the inside. And when you have pure water on the outside of a cell, and that water moves on the inside, the water will balance out and become even. But when you put a plant cell in pure water, the cell swells. At the exact opposite is if I take a cell and I place it in salt water, which is what the dentist is doing when he tells you to gargle with salt water. My mom used to tell me this all the time. You have a sore throat? Oh, you gotta gargle with salt water. You take the salt water, which has a lower concentration of water than regular water. So you have just a few dots out here, but you have lots of dots inside. So if I have a high concentration of water on the inside of the cell, water will move from the outside to the inside. And actually, the cell will shrink and become all wrinkly. But that water will balance out. And in some cases, you can even die if you take enough water. So the next time your mom or your dentist or your doctor tells you to gargle with salt water, it's to kill the bacteria that might be in there. Active transport basically uses pumps. And I used to have a well at the house that I grew up in. We had to pump the water up out of the ground. Active transport uses energy to pump stuff in or out of the cell. All right, so that takes us to the end of that lesson. Remember, active transport uses energy. This is the key one here. Passive transport does not need energy. Until next time, make sure you get your work and get the reading done. I'm Mr. Housebox, and have a great day. Be good, be safe.